Hello, everyone, and thank you. Welcome back to Daily Dose 719. My name is Shay Dabney. I'm really excited to sit down with Ingrid today. Hi, as a part of our Cultivating Love series, name still TBD on that one. But the last time Jules and I sat down, it was kind of an overview. We just talked about like love and relationships, some things that we've learned from dating and being engaged in relationship. So today, to kind of deepen just like cultivating love in all aspects of our life. I'm really excited to be able to sit down with you and talk about what self love means to you personally today.
Yay, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be on the show and I'm excited to, get inside self love and talk about that.
So let's get into it. So you were telling me a little bit about your nonprofit. Do you want to tell us about like what it's called, what the main purpose is?
Yeah, so my nonprofit is called Think Positive Club, and we are all about positive thinking, sharing the power of positive thinking, spreading positivity, and building community. And a little background on me, I went to school for health and wellness, and that's where I kind of started researching positive psychology, studying gratitude, like figuring out how emotions and our thinking kind of manifest our reality. So I'm a big manifester, and I wanted to see the science behind manifesting. So I did all of my research on that. And then my biggest passion is to spread, hey, you have this power to create things from the way you think, whatever you're thinking, you're creating. And so I kind of decided to, you know what, let me just spread it and create the Think Positive Club.
Yeah. So, with going to school with the kind of intentionality of studying this, what would you say was your entryway into really like mindfulness and manifestation?
Yeah, so I actually was a very negative person back in the day, like, "Ugh, not another day. Life's the worst, it can't get any worse. Like, just really negative. And one day I was studying physics and I was working full time. I had no sleep and I got into a car accident and I hit a tree right before my house. And I had some cannabis in my car, so the police came, and then it was this huge, crazy moment. But luckily, it kind of all worked out, and I met this nurse because I actually got a concussion, and I met this nurse, and she said you should watch the movie The Secret. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Secret. Okay, well, it's called The Secret, and it's the secret of life. But they actually talk about law of attraction, and they talk about how our thinking creates reality and just how our thoughts become things. And I was just fascinated because I do have a science background, and I was like, this makes sense, but I need to know if it's real because I should have known about this way before. My life would be so different if I knew I had the power to create it and I wasn't just living, just kind of
bumping around.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was living more intentionally once I knew how my thoughts create life.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. So I guess for me, I started my kind of mindfulness journey when I was in college. So I had like pretty significant anger issues. Like I had a really deep struggle with anger. And then my anger it was really, I had an anxiety issue that would often manifest as anger. So it was my freshman year in college. And I was with my friends and we were actually having a good time. And then all of a sudden, like my chest closed up. I couldn't breathe. And it was the first time I realized I was having an anxiety attack. Wow. So I didn't know what to do or what was really going on. So I did the worst thing that I probably could have did. I went to my room and I secluded myself and I just sat and I was like, I don't know what's happening to my body. So I just tried to wait for it to pass. And then once I realized, I was like, you have like pretty severe anxiety. I started taking a yoga class that they offered for free on my campus. So I started attending twice a week, and it was really the breathing practices. Like moving my body certainly helped with like moving my energy around and getting some of that anger out.
Yeah.
But it was really the breathing practices that I realized were very they were illuminating for me. They were refreshing, and like that was really when I started to realize like the impact that my mind had on my surroundings.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say, what is self-love to you?
Well, for me, self love, I think it encompasses so many things. And the biggest thing is just having this love for yourself, even in the negative moments and the positive moments, because I too was one of those people that was like only positive thinking, positive thinking. I was trying to avoid all of the other emotions that I had, like anger or, guilt or shame. All of these emotions, I didn't want to feel them because I just wanted to be positive. But I feel like self-love is being okay with that emotion that you're having, allowing it to flow through you and not identifying as that emotion, which is
Yeah.
kind of where mindfulness and it just kind of
Yes.
brought me into understanding and being aware of my thoughts and what I'm doing at the moment, and also breathing, because I notice like when I'm like you
Yep.
realize you're not breathing when you're overstressed, and then you take that moment and it really like just relaxes you at
It
that moment.
centers you and it
Yeah.
grounds you. That's an extremely real feeling. And I appreciate what you said about, like, when we think that we are wanting to be mindful and be positive, we think that means only allowing space for positive things.
Yeah.
But something that I've really found a lot of strength in for myself personally is knowing that you are not your emotions and they're just visitors, like weather is a visitor.
Yeah.
So you can allow these things to come and you can experience them and you can honor yourself in that way, but you have to let it pass. And that was like where I struggled for a long time. Was
Same.
Yeah, I repressed a lot of emotions in the past. So like finally being able to acknowledge, like, you're feeling anger, you're feeling upset,
Yeah.
you're feeling hurt, and then moving out of that has been a multi-step process for me.
Absolutely, and that same with me, because we don't want to feel these emotions, but because we think that's they're ours, But we
Yeah.
have 60,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of them are programmed from other things, what we watch, what we hear, and so we'll have these negative thoughts, and then if we stay on the negative thought, then it becomes a feeling, and then
Yeah.
we embody that feeling, and then it becomes our mood and behavior. So, just knowing that you can feel it, and I've done this where I have self-positive talk. Before I used to be like, don't cry, don't cry, don't get upset. But now I'm like, okay, I'm upset, and I just allow myself to feel it. There's this really good technique that I use in my self-love practice, and it's emotion tapping, and where you tap out the emotion. So you become aware of the emotion and you allow it to come out. So like right now, I know I'm feeling scared because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And you just keep tapping it out, and eventually the emotion kind of comes out. But if you
Yeah.
keep the emotion deep inside, it's going to stay there and it's going to get triggered later on. And also in research, it can manifest into disease.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of got really into it, because I noticed that, we don't want to feel certain things, but they still stay in our body, and our body
Yes.
will manifest our emotions. It all comes from like our energy.
Yeah. And it's crazy when you think of something that's kind of perceived to be like metaphysical, like energy and vibes and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But it has a real effect on your body. Like when I was 14, I was diagnosed with stress induced acid reflux. So like all of these anxious feelings that I was experiencing throughout my childhood, I was repressing them so tightly that my body was metabolizing
Yeah.
it. And then now, like, any flare up of stress causes me like intense heartburn. I have to take medicine for it and all. So
Yeah.
but as I started practicing mindfulness, actually, I've had less and less like attacks. I take my medicine at a lesser rate than I used to,
Yeah.
because I just have better stress management tools at my disposal now.
Yeah.
So in your development, what has it looked like? What does it look like? So where did you start? Where do you feel like you experienced the most growth, and then where are you now?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's my mindset, because when I first got introduced to the law of attraction, learning how our positive thoughts create reality, and even our negative thoughts. So I was really like, I just wanted positive thinking, and I kind of left out the other aspects of my feelings,
Yeah.
my emotions, and just understanding who I am as a person, but also as a spirit and a
Right.
soul. And I think I developed this mindset where I can still be positive, but be graceful with the other emotions that I have. Like I notice that I'm not perfect, and I think we in the society, we're always trying to pressure, you should be doing this, you need to be
Yeah.
doing this, and there's so much stress that comes on, like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough, I should be doing more. And I think when we change the narrative on that, instead of thinking we're like human doings, we're human beings. You should just be.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was like, everything is working out. And that's one of my mantras. Everything is working out in my highest favor. Things are all is well. And just kind of focusing on mantras that help me stay present in the moment, because we're so focused on what's going to happen in the future that we're not enjoying the only moment that's actually we're living in. Like, we're
Yeah.
living in this present moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think my biggest thing is just this positive mentality, but being able to be resilient and be more aware of my emotions, because there, as a woman, our body changes all the time and our hormones switch. And then there's moments when I look in the mirror and I may not like what I'm seeing.
Yes.
And I see that as more of a reflection of what else is going on in my life.
Yes.
I think that that's a big thing. Like, sometimes my closet can get messy and I'm like, okay, there's things are going on in my life. Like, everything is a reflection on what's happening in your life,
Yeah.
how you feel when things are going good, smooth, everything's nice and neat and organized, things are perfect, I'm not overwhelmed. But when I am getting overwhelmed, that's when I start to notice these other emotions
Yeah.
that start happening, like I'm overstressed, or I may not like my appearance, or things like that, where I'm just being very self-critical, and I'm
Yeah.
noticing that that comes from a lot of stress.
Yeah. And I think you really have to be very in touch with yourself to notice when you're making those kinds of decisions, or you're in that kind of space, I guess is
Right.
what I'm trying to say. So for you, what were some indicators that you're like, okay, I definitely need to check in with myself. I need to do some mental health maintenance. What are some of those
Yeah.
signs?
So I think it's when I'm feeling like I need to be doing something, when I feel like I should be doing something, and I'm rushing, and I'm like, okay, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this.
Yeah.
That's one of my triggers where I'm like, okay, I'm getting overwhelmed. Also, when I'm a little bit more self-critical, like if I look in the mirror and I don't give myself a positive affirmation, if the first thing I'm telling myself is negative, I'm like, okay, there's something going on.
Yeah.
Also, when my car gets messy, when I have too much stuff, I'm like, okay, I need to clean my car, because
Yeah.
I feel like you'll have these little moments where, like, when you're on a routine and things are going well and your self-love is high and everything's great, but when it starts to like slowly change because of
Yeah.
life events, I think you gotta, like you said, you gotta be aware of that,
Yeah.
and you'll know more of, like, oh, my room's messy because something's happening in my life,
Yeah.
instead of I'm just messy, like.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's a lot of those same things. Like, I've let the dishes pile up for a few days, or the laundry needs to be done. So I guess for me, because I'm kind of coming out of a little bit of like a depressive space. Like, I was very high functioning, but I just didn't have the same like passion and
Yeah.
drive for life that I normally experience. Like, I didn't care to invest in my appearance. I didn't care to work out. I didn't care to
Yeah.
like take care of my space. I was very much just focused on making sure that my house, my family was okay, was functioning. And then
Yeah.
that's when I was like, well, maybe we really need to sit down and look at some of the things that I'm doing in my life, because I'm not fulfilled.
Yeah.
I'm not fulfilled. So I sat there with myself, and I just started doing the things that I know that used to make me happy. And that's what I've always found a lot of success in. But when you do find that your mental health is starting to like deteriorate, what are some practices that you engage in to try to like
Yeah.
help build that back up?
Well, and I think in life we're gonna have those moments. You could be as positive as you want, but you're gonna have life hit you, and that's where, like, yes, in the beginning, when I have things like that happen, and when I realize I'm in a funk, I tend to do positive self-talk. Like, I talk to myself, and I remind myself of what I preach, and I practice it, positive thinking, all is well, everything is working out for me. But also I journal, and I have faith in a higher power.
Yes.
And with me going to school and studying quantum physics and just all of these metaphysical things, I know there's an intelligent designer out
Yeah.
there. And I like to believe that everything is working out in my favor if I have that faith. And it's just, there's so much research showing that when you're intentional behind things, when you trust in a bigger purpose, a bigger
Yeah.
process, things always work out. And they always do. And I always look back at where I used to worry and I was really stressed, and how things always worked out for
Right.
the better.
Yeah.
So I always, when I get to that space, I let myself feel. Like, I let myself feel depressed, sad, whatever I'm feeling at that moment. And then I come back to reminding myself of my core values of
Yep.
trusting the process, everything's working out, like seeing that there's a bigger picture behind it, and this is just going to help me grow. And it'll kind of take me away from it, and then again I try to focus on at that moment feeling better at that
Yeah.
moment, like what is going to make myself feel better. Going to the gym is big for me because I think when you're in the gym, when I do my sets, I practice my affirmations. So I'll do one, and I'll say my affirmations, and I think it takes you away from what else is happening in your
Yeah.
life. So I really think movement is so important, especially with emotions. And that's one of the events I want to do, but helping people use movement to release negative emotions or any emotions that may still be stored trauma in our bodies. So movement is big for me. Yoga, meditation. I listen to a lot of guided meditation.
Yes.
And my Instagram is I follow a lot of motivation and inspiration and just positivity. So I'm digesting all of that stuff. So when I need to hear a positive quote, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And when I feel like I need to hear it, I feel like somebody else needs to hear it. So posting it and sharing it with somebody else, or
Yeah.
just doing things that make me feel better. And slowly and steady, I get back to my aligned self, and I see things in a different perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yeah.
Especially in the topic of manifestation and mindfulness, your perspective is kind of king. So what the media that you're consuming plays a large role in
Yeah.
that. So I do try to be mindful of like the content that I'm consuming. I try to like mitigate the amount of time that I spend on social media, even the news, because it can be very like it's easy to feel very overwhelmed in the times that we're currently in, and to just want to completely disengage. And then that's when I just have to remind myself that I can only take care of the things, I can only control what I can control, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, I find that to be very powerful.
It's like that quote, if you want to change the world, you got to change yourself
Yeah.
first, And you got to, I can't do anything if I'm in the problem. I feel like we have to be solution oriented. So it's always coming from a solution approach. And you're right, news is so negative, and a lot of the stuff on Instagram can be negative, and a lot of comparison can happen, which is big because we're like, oh, we're comparing ourselves versus just appreciating who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that also kind of goes into self-love because we find there's something, we're not enough when we see all these other things on Instagram, somebody traveling, doing all these things, and we're like, man, I'm not where I want to be. And we kind of take it as a like comparison versus, oh, I see that, I like what they're doing, and I can be there too, instead of shifting it. But we kinda-
And it's definitely really difficult in the culture that we're in. And I think Instagram is a really great example. I am of the age that I got to watch us evolve from flip phones to the fully computerized devices that we carry around every day. So watching the amount of importance and stock that people now put into Instagram, it's kind of amazing to me. And then to watch now, you see younger children, girls especially, are struggling with self-image, and
gosh.
like the comparison thing that I feel are kind of getting at. So for young ladies, for any woman, anybody, what do you feel are some things that you can do to practice loving the body that you're in?
Yeah. I think appreciating our bodies is big because we have trillions of cells working 24/7, keeping our immune system up, keeping our heart pumping. Like there's so much like things happening in the moment. And when do we really take a moment to thank ourselves, right? For healing a scab, helping us with a wound, like. And that's the thing, our immune system gets compromised when we have a lot of negative thinking.
Yeah.
So we're exposed to millions of germs, but our immune system is high when you're having a positive attitude, when you're in a good space. But when things are going on and you're stressed out, your immune system goes down. So you get more compromised to a lot of disease and germs. But specifically appreciating everything your body's doing. And I have this technique where I write a letter to my body and I just say, thank you, and when I put lotion on, I appreciate my feet, I appreciate my knees, because we don't know how lucky we are until we don't have it. So
100%.
We're here breathing with our nose, and then when we get a cold, we're stuffed, and then we're like, dang, I want to get better,
Yeah.
And those are the things that, like, I may not like what I see, but I love who I am. And then just appreciating that. And there is that, everybody wants to get better. Everyone wants to look different. There's nothing wrong with that. But then if you become too obsessed and are trying to change your body when you hate your body,
Yeah.
you're not aligned with your body. Because at the end of the day, our cells do have consciousness and they are hearing what we're putting out there.
Yeah.
So when we're constantly body shaming ourselves, like our cells respond to that. So instead, I always promote positive self-talk. And actually, my daughter, she's 8 years old. I was going into her iPad and I read a note where she actually has started talking about how she doesn't like her size, and she's in elementary school.
Yeah.
And I too, I think every young girl, we want it to be skinny, skinny, and we feel like our size may not be right. And I kind of shared like, sizes don't matter.
Yeah.
That's really doesn't matter. But at that moment, I remember when I was a kid, and somebody could have told me that I didn't.
And it
Yeah,
wouldn't,
it wouldn't hit, And so all I can do is just really show her that you gotta love yourself, like your hands, like everything you're doing. Your body is doing a lot of that. And yeah, there are goals. You can have goals to change your body. That's
Yeah.
totally fine. But like I said, it's better to do it when you are at peace with your body, when you
Yes.
love your body, so you guys can both be on that same page.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the intentionality portion of it is very important. Like you said, it's perfect to have goals and things that you want to change, but I think if you're doing it from a place of love and a place of respect for your body, because it
Yes.
carries you everywhere you need to go, Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Your body's going to outlast a lot of these machines, a lot of
Yeah.
these things. So taking care of it is big. And that's another self-love practice. Like, I want to be healthy in all areas of my life, especially when it comes to like my physical fitness, sleep. There's so many factors that you got to be good to your body. So sometimes I used to be really obsessed with like trying to lose weight, and I got into an eating disorder, and then I got into a negative relationship with food, and
Yeah.
like all these things, they affect your mental health and
Yeah.
your physical, and you're starving yourself when you're doing all these things just to change the way you look, versus becoming the person you want to be.
Yeah.
You're not trying to it's when you're trying to change yourself externally, those things can work, but they're not going to be sustainable.
Right.
That's why people yo-yo, because they're changing these things
Yeah.
versus changing themselves. And like you said, when you do it out of love and respect, and your teamwork makes the dream work, you and your body are
Yeah.
aligned, and you guys can practice mind body connection. And that's why I love yoga. I think it's a gentle way to kind of get your body into movement.
Yes.
And at that moment when you're in that yoga practice, you're not really able to think about anything else. You're
Yes.
just posing, you're breathing, and it's really this whole connection that I love.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely love yin yoga, which is more gentle approach, because the flow is always like it depends on what yoga instructor you get, but sometimes they can really shift it into fitness exercise versus that mind body connection that it can bring.
No, and I completely agree with your point about yoga, because like if I feel like you're appropriately practicing, you don't really have the capacity. You're focusing on your breath, you're making sure that your body is in like the poses in a way that is comfortable to you.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like it's time for me to check in with my body. Like when I start to do my beginning stretches, I'm like, okay, my back is kind of sore, my arms are tired. Like, and I feel like that's a really important way for me to know what care to give my body throughout the
Yes.
rest of the day too.
Absolutely. And I think you touched it, like we're going to have pain in our body, specific areas. And I'm very spiritual. So I always look up like what's the spiritual
Yes.
meaning behind lower back pain or shoulders or things like that. And there's always like overthinking, overstress. Like there's
Yeah.
things that our bodies, it's like, hey, slow down, because you need to do this, you need to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing enough. And we're just not being gentle with our body and loving it and respecting it, all it does for us. I mean,
Yeah.
our cells do so much. So just the fact that we're this intelligent design, we have the supercomputer in our mind, and we have all these functions that are occurring without our knowledge and keeping us alive. So really just focusing on what we have and just putting that out there, appreciating ourselves, patting ourselves on the back. And
Yeah.
sometimes we got to push ourselves, but also appreciate ourselves and see how far we've come.
Yeah.
And that's usually what I want to do with Think Positive Club. I post a lot of positive quotes, reminders that all is well, that you're doing your best, And I think the right person's going to see that, and then it's going to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. You never know what the impact of the things that you say is. And also, it's a song. I don't remember what song it is, but the lyric is, the words that come from your mouth, you are the first to hear. So you should speak words of beauty. And I
Yes.
think that that's really important because there's always like a whole universe going on inside of another person, and you
Yeah.
never know what they have going on and what the impact or the effect of one kind word or a not kind word could
Yeah.
be. So, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, somebody we could get 10 compliments, but a lot of us will remember one negative compliment, one negative comment, and we'll keep that in our mind, like, and then it'll kind of stay there, and then we will
Yeah.
identify with it, and we'll
And it'll
label ourselves.
grow.
Yeah. And it's like, we got to be so careful with the words we speak to ourselves, but other
Yes.
people too, because that's the energy we're giving
Yes.
out. So absolutely, I'm always positive self-talk, and it's not just like, oh, it doesn't, like, people are like affirmations don't work, but it is a neuro-linguistic programming that you're doing in your mind. Your neurons are going to change. Our brain is plastic and can change and
Yeah.
rewire itself, which is why positive thinking is so important, because when we do have this positive self-talk, when it's too hard and we change it to, I'll figure it out.
Yes.
We make a way, our mind starts to change, our neurons start to change, and we become a different person than we were before. So it's always like, worrying gives you something to do, but instead of worrying, you could be expecting a better outcome,
Yeah.
trusting the process, and releasing and letting that out into the universe. And it's crazy, but I got really into it and started doing research on the CIA declassified articles, finding out
Yes.
how our mind creates reality, how the universe is a hologram works, and then just releasing issues and problems that we have.
Yes.
Because if you notice, I don't know if you've ever had this, like, where you're trying to think of the name of the movie and you're like, oh, I just can't. And you're forcing yourself to think of that. And then eventually I'll figure it out. And later, like 3 minutes later,
It comes to
it
you
comes
as
to you.
soon as you relax. Yeah.
Yes. And that's in the CIA declassified articles. They say that. They say, when you have a problem, release it into the universe, and then just, it'll come to you.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of philosophies, let go, let God, trust the process, go with the flow.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing when we're also aware that our positive thinking, but also we're working with the whole
Yeah.
universe as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all connected.
Yeah.
I'm a big energy, spirituality, chakra kind of proponent.
Same.
So I hear truth in that, and I really value that. I
Yeah.
think in my journey, I've gone kind of past because I do feel very like confident in the person that I am, and I feel like I know myself pretty well. So now I feel like as though I'm at the point in my life, especially now that I have a child,
Yeah.
that I want to start working on the person that I am and start being a better person.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's really the shape that radical self-love has taken, is that knowing what the uglier parts of me are and loving them anyway,
Yeah.
and that's the only way that I can work with them, because I can't hate it away. I have to love it and give
Yeah.
it space to breathe, because I'm like that for a reason, and it's a
Yeah.
part of me. So I guess, what are some radical self-love practices that you engage in?
So I think when I have fearful thoughts, or when I'm scared of the future, or I just don't know how things are going to go, like when I throw events, I'm like, oh, what if nobody comes? I have these negative thoughts. I try to remember to appreciate that emotion, because it's coming from a place of love. Like, because they're trying to protect me. Fear is trying to protect me at the end of the day. And just making friends with those emotions, but letting them come out. So I definitely do a lot of self-talk, but I also do that EFT, where I tap specific areas. And I know you're like, you mentioned chakras. So like, there's specific areas in our body that we can help tap and release that emotion. I do that. I do a meditation. I journal. And I do a lot of sound healing, because I think it'll help with my chakras. And I'm a big chakra too. Like, I'm a big energy. So when my energy's negative, sometimes I just have to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, sometimes you can't stop thinking negative. So when you can't get to that point where you're just anxiety, and that's where anxiety, you can't go to sleep because thoughts just come in.
Yeah.
I have to figure out a way to like distract. Like, that's why I play chess, where you really need to focus. You can't think about anything else when you're playing chess. Like, things that'll take you away from your mind and put you in that moment.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what I do, because I think that we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and we will have some negative, intrusive thoughts that slide in, and then we just got to be like, let it go. Instead of fighting it because we're resisting it, we're still putting energy to it.
Yeah.
Instead of just, okay, this is how I feel. Why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel insecure? I know that this feeling is just coming up because it's at the end of the day, it's trying to protect me. But I know
Yeah.
all is well, and I remind myself of those things.
Yeah, holding space for it is a part that I'm really struggling with, and I appreciate the comment that it's like it's a process, right? Like no one just wakes up and is a positive person, or they no longer struggle with anxiety or anger. So trying to be forgiving of myself in that, but also holding myself to the standard to which I know that I can like achieve, like knowing that I can be better and I want to be better. So it's a really delicate balance for me, and that's like where I've been existing. Yeah.
And I think most of us, we didn't have that nurturing support at a young age. We weren't given that like validation. We weren't given that, hey, you got this. It was always sometimes, I come from a Latino background, so we did a lot of comparison. Why can't you be like this? And as a young child, that's when you start getting programmed. So a lot of these things that we have in our body, in our mind, and how we react and get triggered is because of our childhood.
Yeah, they don't even belong to us.
And might be generational too. Like I'm a big believer that sometimes the energy can still come in. So it's just realizing that, like you mentioned, becoming more aware of who you want to be and being okay with those negative emotions that pop up and not fighting them, but just letting them flow out. And that's a big thing for me because I was a little radical. I was called annoyingly positive because I can be. And that's like, think positive, think positive, think positive, which then I had to understand the emotion aspect because thinking releases that magnetic thought, but emotions is an energy. Like your aura is going to change. If you're angry, you can feel that vibe. You can feel somebody come in the room and they're like, okay, there's something's going on with them. And your cells, again, this goes again with your health, but if you're in a negative emotion, your cells are on that. Like your body responds to that. So it's always like, find practices that work for you that you can get out of your mind, and even like washing your dishes and just doing something that can really keep you there and being okay with the thousand of thoughts. They're going to come in. They're going to it's going to be okay, but you just have to kind of refocus. And it takes some time to meditate. Like meditation isn't the easiest.
It's a skill.
It is a skill to get to the point where you can actually focus on certain things. So for me, I do practices like chess. I don't know if you've ever done this, but floating. It's a float session where you go into like a tank and it's you just go in there, no sound, it's no light. So you only have your mind. That's the only thing. You can't even feel because you're floating.
Yeah.
So it really, I fall asleep but I get into this place where I'm so relaxed. I don't know where I went.
Right.
And that's positive when you can, and that's why sleep is always good too. Like when you have things going on, just take a nap.
Desensitize yourself like to everything that's going on. Like showering for me, just because it's like a physical sensation and it takes me out of my mind. Moving my body too.
Doing something that really like you'll have to get out of there. And that's true. Showering, I feel like it's very cleansing too. And hearing certain music, sometimes even like I have to put on like a motivational speech on YouTube, something that's gonna kind of help me feel better. Positive self-talk is really big, and like I try to talk to myself like I would talk to my daughter, like positive, not like, oh, you didn't do this right, very and it's a big movement, positive parenting, gentle parenting, and sometimes it's like, oh, you're letting her get away with a lot, but it's like I'm building her to be a very self-confident person. So she talks back, but she has a point. Like I can't say she's wrong when she like catches me.
Because children are smart. You know?
They're very smart. So I'm always like, positive self-talk is huge for me.
Yeah, I really appreciate being able to sit down with you. I think one of the last questions that I want to ask you before we close up is, what do you perceive to be one of the biggest misconceptions about thinking positively and being mindful?
I think the biggest misconception is that it's just wishful thinking. I feel like people don't understand the science behind our thoughts and how they release an electromagnetic into the universe. So it's huge when you are aware that you have so much power in your thoughts. you become empowered. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's big when people don't take it seriously. And so that's why I think Positive Club, you know, we're here, we have a research library, we have research on healing the body with our thoughts, how our
Yeah.
thoughts can help our body heal, and also just being intentional with everything we're doing in life, and how our thoughts, if you think about everything in the universe was once a thought, and it came into fruition
Yeah.
without somebody had to think about it. And imagination is
Yeah.
huge, you know. Our mind doesn't know what's real or not. That's why when we sit down and watch a scary movie, our mind will feel those emotions.
Yes.
And that's why you have to be careful with what you're digesting. But
Yes.
because your mind is right there feeling that, it shows you how powerful the mind doesn't know and what are you feeding it. So you got to be powerful with your intentions to think, and then also knowing that there's so much science behind
Yeah.
positive thinking.
No, 100%.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of events coming up at Stomping Ground. So we have a Galentine self-love mixer. It's going to be fun. And we have a moonlight yoga. We try to harness the power of the moon.
Yeah.
And then we're doing a nourish your soul. And then we have a junk journaling. So if you need to journal and get things out, that's what we're trying to do. Create positive practices to
Yeah.
help you be a positive person.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course.
It's
Thank
been
you for
really
having
beautiful.
me.
Yeah, it's been really great.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you again, Ingrid, for a really fascinating conversation surrounding self-love. It's the month of February, so we do want to talk about cultivating love in all aspects of our life. I think that we can expect like a cultivating love within our culture conversation coming up soon, and then also we'll be having a live panel discussion surrounding love and relationships. So hopefully we'll see you guys here for that.
Yay.